First of all, I want to start by saying something positive because although I've been making YouTube videos for a little bit over 4 years, over the last 12 months more specifically, this channel has just grown faster than I ever thought would be possible. And ultimately that has allowed me to transition from this just being a hobby and a pipe dream to it actually being my full-time job, which is honestly something I didn't think I would ever be able to say. So first and foremost, I do want to say thank you to everyone who's watched and subscribed to the channel and just given me a chance to live out this childhood dream. So thank you. That said, a lot of stuff is about to change and some things have already changed, so I think it's about time we had a little bit of a chat and I'll try and make this quick. So I started this channel at the beginning of lockdown in 2020 as I and many others were unable to work due to COVID, so I basically just turned to YouTube videos as a means of keeping me sane whilst isolating at home. Prior to COVID, I actually ran 3 companies. I had a wedding photography / videography business, which was my main gig. I also owned a corporate media business called Blackpoint Media, which was in its infancy but still growing steadily. And then a few months before lockdown actually happened, I opened a totally different business with my best friend, which was a co-working space in my hometown of Peterborough here in the UK. Then COVID hit. In the space of just a few months, my wedding company was just completely on its knees. My co-working venture, which was profitable just a few months before, was now no longer a viable business because most people were converting their spare rooms into home offices and therefore no need for co-working. And that just left the corporate business, which thankfully managed to hold on throughout the turbulence. So after COVID, I decided to double down and expand my business by opening up a new studio space with a dedicated YouTube studio where I could record all of my videos and really try and make a go of YouTube, which was all going great until the end of last year. Now, some of you may or may not have noticed that my YouTube background suddenly changed a few months ago without kind of any explanation. Well, that's because unfortunately at the end of last year, my corporate business took a rather significant hit, and in the space of 2 months, we lost basically 5 of our biggest clients, all for completely unrelated reasons and not because we'd done anything wrong. It was just all very, very bad timing. So in an attempt to keep everyone in a job and just protect the longevity of the business that I'd built, I had to drastically cut the company's outgoings, and that meant closing down the studio. Literally within the space of a week, everything we had worked so hard to build had to be torn down and scrapped, which was pretty crushing to say the least. Luckily though, my best friend came to the rescue as he still had an office in town, which he said we could operate from whilst we were still trying to find our feet, and he even made this space available for us to make a small YouTube studio. So honestly, I can't explain how thankful I am to him for just helping us out. Typically though, as one business is on its knees, the YouTube channel started growing more quickly than ever, which, as I said at the start of the video, has allowed me to turn this into something that's able to support myself and my family financially. It also means that I no longer have to draw a wage from my corporate business, which has helped to stem the bleeding a little bit more, well, at least for now. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, to be honest, for a few reasons. Firstly, I think these days we live in a world where we only tend to show people the successes in our lives and we rarely talk about the failures. But the truth is, if you ask anyone who's involved in business, behind them in their wake is a long trail of failures they've had to experience and endure. And I don't think that's a side of things that is something to be ashamed of. It's those experiences that actually you learn from and allow you to improve. But that certainly does not mean that those experiences are enjoyable. In fact, in my case, the last 4 years has had a significant impact on my mental health and has fundamentally changed me as a person. And this leads me on to my next issue, which is the current state of this YouTube channel itself. Now, I have to preface this section by saying that I am incredibly grateful to have this channel, particularly considering that it's been an absolute lifeline for me and my family, allowing us to get through a particularly rough financial situation. But as the channel has grown over the last 6 months in particular, I am starting to suffer from a lot of abuse from people in the comment section, and it all tends to be around the gear review videos that I make. Now, obviously, constructive criticism and just calling me out on any mistakes that I might make are things that I openly encourage because I'm only human and I will mess up from time to time, and I am still learning how to cope with YouTube and all of this sort of stuff. So it's important that those corrections are made so that everyone gets their facts and everyone can learn and improve. But I am receiving comments that are just way out of line and go out of their way to attack my integrity as a person with absolutely no grounds to do so. Ultimately, I'm just a dude on the internet who likes playing around with cameras, and if my opinions differ from your own, you really shouldn't care all that much. I mean, if you don't agree with my standpoint, that is absolutely fine. Your viewpoints are as valid as mine, but please do us both a favour and just stop watching my videos if you find me that offensive, and go and find somebody else you much prefer to listen to. Because believe me, you'll be much happier in your life if you surround yourself with the things you do enjoy rather than spamming hate comments to those who you don't. Now, the reason why I came to YouTube was I had the intention intention of making a bunch of light-hearted photography videos that hopefully give people a bit of a laugh. And it was never my intention to create a space where negativity and borderline bullying can fester. Now, I do like to consider myself fairly thick-skinned, and in isolation I think I could handle most bullshit that's thrown at me. But coming off the back of the last 4 years, I'm just a little bit done with everything feeling so negative in life. But I don't want this video to be all doom and gloom, because there are so many of you that are just awesome. You're kind, supportive, and you're just here to enjoy photography with all the rest of us, and it's you guys that makes me want to make more content. But it's definitely got to the point now where I think that something needs to change, because if things don't improve, all I can see on the horizon is burnout and misery if this continues. Now, honestly, I don't really know exactly what that means for this channel long term, but one thing I do know is that I need to say goodbye to a few things. Firstly, I want to make less serious gear type review content, because I feel like that this is just the epicenter of all the negativity. I think unfortunately these days people take photography reviews way too seriously. Ultimately, they're just cameras. We're not talking about world politics here. It's just a piece of tech. It really shouldn't make that much of an impact on your life. So instead, I want to start making more fun content, stuff like the Bigma video that I made recently, which has had so much positive feedback from you guys, and I feel that that's just content that's really hard to get angry at. But anyway, that pretty much covers what is going to change, but I also mentioned that some things have already changed. So what did I mean by that? Well, I've lived in the same part of the UK for the majority of my life, and it just so happens that it happens to be one of the most desolate, rainy, and borderline boring parts of the UK to be in. I am not completely miserable living here. It's always been my hometown, and it always will be my hometown, but after 35 years of being here, I'm ready to say goodbye. So I've moved to Canada. Calgary, to be more specific. I've sold my house, I've sold my possessions, I've chucked my wife, my kids, and more importantly, all of my cameras onto a one-way flight halfway around the globe, and now we're living here in the mountains. Was this a good idea? Who knows, but f*** it. Sometimes you just need to hit the reset switch, and now seemed as good a time as any. So yeah, things are going to change, and upcoming content is going to look very different to what it did before, in more ways than one, but hopefully in a good way. I've been thinking for months about this, and I've got lots of new ideas that I want to try out on the channel, and I really hope you'll stick around for the journey. So here's to saying goodbye and looking forward to the future.